Okay, so here we are at our third gate throat activation, which is actually tomorrow.
Oh,
So we just got this one in. We said we would do these the Sunday before each gate activation. So we're just getting this one in under the wire because tomorrow's the gate activation.
I don't know
So
why I thought it was today.
yeah, no, it's tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, depending on where in the world you are, and I'll show you on the chart, it could be today in some places of the world, and I'll show you that. So it's today or tomorrow, depending on where you are. For me, it's tomorrow.
Well,
First, let's look at the agenda, and then we'll get into that.
all
So
right.
since I mailed out these slides to you, I've made some corrections to the agenda that I had not caught the first time around, and I've made some additions to the agenda. So we're going to open sacred space, and then I thought I should go ahead and start providing a little container before we jump into everything to bring a little closure to what was going on at the second gate, because now that I'm not on Facebook, I want to be able to provide more opportunities for the interaction of the class members. So beyond the support group now, then this will give us a final opportunity to say anything about the second gate that we'd like to say before we move into the next gate. Then I'm going to talk about, before we start on this next gate, I'm going to talk about what's happening in the heavens right now that I feel is really significant and that each of you should be aware of as we're moving through this gate and the others. That's kind of come to a head with something that's transpired today, which you'll see. Then we'll talk about the gate of communication, which is the throat chakra gate, and we'll talk about the throat chakra. We'll talk about the third gate activation aspects and its relationship to the archetype of divine creation. I am going to talk a little bit about the sacred masculine and the Mars signotic cycle and how that's tying into what's happening during this gate activation, or during this gate period, I should say. Then we'll look at the third gate activation chart, which is where you'll see, based on the time of the chart, whether it's happening in your area today or tomorrow. Then we'll look at the third gate activation themes. And then we're going to engage this slide, remember the cosmic dance, that I've had in the other two classes, but we're looking at it more closely today because of the fact that these overarching themes of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction and the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction are being activated in this gate today, tomorrow. We'll talk about engaging the cosmic dance. And let me just say here, the quote unquote assignment that I sent out for today, let me reframe that. I realize now that the word I'm an old school teacher. So assignment and homework is just second nature to me in terms of language and in terms of engaging people to practice what we're discovering. So again, because we're in this phase where we're shifting from having been online through social media and having opportunities to communicate with each other more frequently to now just having this classes and the support groups, it didn't occur to me that there might be some emotional resistance coming up, not only around the word assignment, but also around a time frame to try to do anything for today. And so I want to reframe all of that. I understand why Tammy and Kaylin call it home play as opposed to homework. I think that what I'd like to do, because I'm very conscious of not stepping on their toes in any way, is that I will make a conscious effort in the future to not call them assignments, because there's a lot of negative charge around that. I will call them opportunities for vision questing. And that what I will do when I share those opportunities is provide the space for them to be shared during the support group time rather than the classroom time, so that it doesn't feel like such a push to try to do something. So we'll look at that slide in relationship to that, and we will go forward in terms of contributing to that at the next support group, which I will share with you a slide on that. And of course, at any time, questions and answers. So how does that all sound to you? That's a lot to try to squeeze in today.
Sounds wonderful. Really good. Go for it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, yeah. Woo! I always have so much I want to get into 2 hours, and so we'll see.
I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. So I'm going to let you open Sacred Space since you're the one that's with us today, and I'll be doing so much of the talking. So you'll see when we get into the gate activation that the moon and Venus are conjunct Vesta in this gate activation. So in honor of her, we are going to do an invocation to the goddess Vesta. I do have my candle lit, and we will prepare ourselves now. And whenever you're ready.
Okay. Vesta, our source of light, bringer and sustainer of light. Independent, free, powerful, nourisher of life. Teach me to manifest this loving power in my life. I dedicate myself to come before your altar here to serve myself, this earth, and the divine light and order. I claim independence, freedom of will. I claim the power of light, the flame eternal. I claim this with love and the creative power it distills into good and peace. I leave behind all ideas of pain, harm, or darkness, and come to this altar pure and filled with your light. I rely on the promise of your eternal flame to return to this altar with the moon and her course and your light of creativity in my heart with which to make my claim of love. Light the flame of desire, independence, creativity, and nurturance, a fire that maintains the light within me. I claim all this knowing you, Vesta, as my source, and so mote it be. That's good.
Thank you.
That's really good. I have not engaged Vesta in this way, and it feels really good. Yeah, you know, it kind of feels like the hollow bone, doesn't it? That we practiced in our priestess program, becoming the hollow bone.
Yes. And since this gate activation is in Leo, a fire sign, it just seemed like a really perfect occasion to acknowledge her, call her in, share space with her.
Yes, absolutely.
And I love this image of her.
That is a wonderful image, yes. Love it, yeah.
Okay, so I know as Venus buddies, we've talked a lot about what's going on between us on the personal level with the second gate activation. And Wanda and Leela haven't had the benefit of those discussions. So if there's anything regarding that you'd like to share for their benefit, or if there's anything additional that we haven't shared yet, this is a great time for that.
Trying to think, the third eye. Well, I'm sorry, nothing is coming up concerning the second gate. No, Nothing at this point. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so look at what's going on in the heavens. What's really important to realize is up until today, we have had 5 planets in retrograde motion. And I've talked before about how when a planet is retrograde, that what that's doing is calling us into the inner realm to look at the energies related to that planet within ourselves. And so we've had a lot of opportunity since April to be looking inwards. That's when Pluto went retrograde. And today, now, Jupiter goes direct. And, but we know that Mars will soon be going retrograde. So that gives us a brief reprieve before we once again have 5 planets in retrograde. So because there's so much fertile opportunity to cultivate the resources that we have within us, to harvest the resources that have been cultivated within us. So this is kind of a dualistic thing that's happening simultaneously within us. I just wanted to bring this into our awareness as a part of this container, that this is what's going on while we are having these gate activations, particularly because today is the day that Jupiter has stationed direct, and it's been 4 months since he went retrograde in Capricorn. And what I've done, as I did in the personal sessions for the last gate when I talked about the Uranus retrograde period, is I've included that time and point when each of these planets return back to where they were in the sky when they started this retrograde journey. And so, you know, this is a territory that we are now exploring for the 3rd time, because these planets will have gone over this territory. They will have retrograded and journeyed back over it. And now once more for the 3rd time, we're being able to experience that territory again. And as I said in the personal session, whenever we're in retrograde, we're being given an opportunity to pick up something valuable that we missed the first time along that path, so that we can carry it forward with us. And of course, Jupiter as the cosmic guru is very much known for, you know, granting boons and offering gifts, particularly at the completion of whatever cycle is happening. So at the completion of this retrograde journey come December 6th, it's very likely that we will each experience some kind of a boon, some kind of a gift, some kind of an expansion that is related to this territory that we've covered during this period. And of course, only we ourselves will know when that shows up, when the cosmos sends us the message, delivers that to us. So I just wanted to share this with everybody so that you can have it in the back of your mind and see what's going on. Be aware of the dates that are coming up. We can see here at the end of this month, Saturn will then station direct. Next month, Pluto is going to be stationing direct. Right around Thanksgiving, then Neptune will be stationing direct. And we already know that in January, Uranus will station direct. So we've got some tremendous opportunities here to really become intimately aware of aspects of ourselves related to these energies that we we're not conscious of when we first traveled across these points in the sky. And then I want to just also point out that the new moon is happening just 3 days after our gate activation at 25 degrees Virgo, and that we'll have our full moon October 1st in Aries. And this point for this full moon is going to be really, really significant. I will point that out when we get into the aspects for this gate. And because it's a full moon, you know, we're talking about the illumination of those energies, what's being illuminated within us regarding the energies of the aspect that it's triggering. So we'll look at that too. Is there anything you'd like to add to this, Maureen, or share regarding this?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I was born with some planets in retrograde. Mercury was in retrograde. Another one was also. So, an astrologist told me a long time ago that those retrogrades would probably, I mean, the planet retrograde that were retrograde in my birth chart would probably be less challenging. And to me, personally, like Mercury, I very seldom am affected by Mercury retrograde. And I wondered, do you think that's true? That it's less impact?
I would say that that's one way of describing it. To clarify that, if you think about Mercury retrograde, when we're using all of the RE words, the time to remember, the time to reevaluate, a time to revisit, you know, all of those RE words, I would say that instead of not being affected by them, that those energies are so second nature to you that it's something that you innately always do.
Yeah.
That it's not a challenge for you, and in that way, by not being challenged, it's quote unquote not affecting you. On the other hand, I would say that it's giving you the opportunity to dive even deeper into those things that are already second nature to you.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that I see that. That's what is going on. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The final thing I'd like to kind of point out about these, and I intentionally put Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto together, as you can see when you look at the terrain that they are navigating here in Capricorn, that one of the points that comes out is this 25-degree point in Capricorn. And so trying to think of the word. There's a special word about the person who's gone through and made, for each degree in the astrological wheel, has made a little statement about what those degrees mean. Do you remember what word it is I'm trying to reach for? I'll find it. I'll find the word, and I'll find the one for the 25 degrees, and I'll put it on the resources page. How about that?
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I just think that maybe looking at what's happening at the 25-degree point in Capricorn is really worth paying attention to. Okay, so now we're moving into the gate of communication, which is the throat chakra. And here what Inanna does as she's descending is she removes her necklace, which is made of lapis lazuli.
It is so beautiful.
Isn't that a beautiful necklace?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I was really attracted to it.
Yeah.
So when she removes her lapis lazuli, she is removing her symbol of communication. And this symbol of communication really acts as a carrier of a message that she has, the wearer, that she is presenting to us as the viewer that see it. And oftentimes in necklaces, you will have very intricate designs in the necklace that incorporate the symbols of whatever message the carrier is offering to the viewer, the wearer is offering to the viewer. Now, since the earliest times, lapis lazuli as a stone has been associated with strength and courage, royalty and wisdom, intellect and truth. And so it's no surprise then that Inanna's necklace would be made with a stone that has these associations. What I did find interesting is that it's also been worn from antiquity in the belief that it'll ward off evil. And so it kind of makes me wonder, of all her jewelry, of all her necklaces, did she consciously choose this particular necklace as she was descending into the underworld to meet with her older sister?
Yeah.
It's something that came to mind. It would be curious to know if there's any connection there.
Oh, it sounds like there was quite a connection to me.
The first thing that came to my mind.
Yes.
Oh, goodness. So then we talk again about how of all of the pieces of jewelry that women and men adorn themselves, that the necklace in particular has been an important site of decoration for the body, but also of communication for the person. And so necklaces can communicate wealth, power, affiliation, prestige, levels of resources and skill, and elements of identity and position. So it's, not at all unusual for us to see royalty and goddesses wearing necklaces to convey that kind of a message. Is there anything at all about the power or the vestment of the necklace that she's surrendering that you'd like to share, Maureen?
No, I will have to work with it. My ability or my desire to speak my truth is somewhat, a little fly here, is somewhat limited in my own space. I spoke to you that earlier when we were talking about how our home has a status of sanctuary for us. At least it should. A place where we can go and be who we are and not be challenged in a way. It should be a place of rest and study and understanding and tolerance and all those qualities we assume is true in our homes as far as our voice goes, how we express ourselves. That is not true in my home, and I think that is something that I really need to deal with at this gate. And it also kind of shows that has been true along my lifeline, that that my voice has not been heard always. And in fact, I haven't always felt like I could speak. And I don't feel that's just this lifetime. I think it's something I bring forward from ancestors. But anyway, that it is a huge gate for me, as is the second on the descent, the third eye, because of the feeling of being safe. And those two are very much challenged in the history of women. And I'm no exception. So I think that this gate is particularly relevant to me, and that's what I need to do, is to totally surrender um, my feelings of shutting up in order to be safe, not to be challenged. Because it's not pleasant, it's not, it's not like you're discussing things. It's like you're having to prove yourself. And I don't feel in your home you should have to do that.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I can relate to that because in the home that I grew up with my parents, I think at first I thought it was because we were children, but I've grown to realize I think it's because we were girl children,
Mm-hmm.
girls, not because my brother didn't have the same experience. He came 9 years after me.
Yeah.
He didn't have the same experience, but we were not allowed to have an opinion. And it was very much understood, old school, children are to be seen and not heard.
I heard.
And when we would visit my dad, who is my adopted father, but he's the birth father of my two siblings. When we would visit his parents, my grandparents there, it was predominant amongst not only him but his siblings. He has 4 siblings, and the parents that we children were to play purdy, which meant we weren't supposed to make a lot of noise while we were playing.
Yeah.
And so, with my sacred masculine in Leo, where this gate is, it was hard for me to meet that expectation because the warrior within me wanted to rise up. But because it was such a physically violent environment, I was young in my life when I was basically beat into submission and my voice was silenced. So, and I experience that now where I'm working. As I told you, that I've just recently discovered that trying to work with my sister is very much like trying to work with, our father, her birth father, where your opinion doesn't matter, your expertise doesn't matter, and really even your contribution is inconsequential. And it's been extremely contentious. And the fact that I cannot just have discussions with her about the authenticity of how I'm feeling regarding the way that I'm being treated, because it always erupts in such a violent verbal assault, is a huge issue for me that I'm facing, that I can see is residual from the childhood experiences of having my voice silenced. So this, I've realized, is a significant gate for me too, in terms of how am I going to move forward with that issue in a way that is authentic and empowering for me. And trying to, while I did gain some clarity through the gate of perception about that, I'm still kind of playing with what that might look like and how it might unfold.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very significant in your life as well. I think most women, if they really thought about it, would find that to be true in their lives. Yeah. And when they became aware that they weren't speaking out about their beliefs in order to be safe, and that can mean a lot of different things, not just physically safe, which it meant in the past, but to be safe with yourself, and being able to express without fear, your ideas. You know, that should not challenge anybody
Exactly.
to listen to it. It's not threatening. It shouldn't be.
Right.
And yet, we still have that lingering over us. And it's been quite a journey for us to balance the divine feminine uh, with the masculine because of the patriarchy. It's taken a long time to be able to speak out. And even now, we are challenged constantly about that in many ways. Um, I just think there's a lot of work to be done at this gate for us
There is a
and
lot of work
the
at this.
collective. Yeah, and I'm not saying that the masculine hasn't felt this also. I'm sure that they have, because there's very much of a feeling of what a man should be, what a masculine energy is. That's not true. So, in order to come into balance, that we have to admit that the masculine has not been able to express themselves freely either.
Well, even just in terms of being told that you're not a man if you cry,
Yeah,
you know,
that, yeah,
crying is a form of expression, particularly, an emotional expression. And so it's not safe to emotionally express yourself, um, is a very strong message that the masculine energy has received.
yeah,
And that goes for us too. We carry that inner feminine and that inner masculine. And so on the one hand, our inner feminine is having this direct experience of having our voice silenced. And on the other hand, our inner masculine is having the experience it's not safe to express yourself emotionally. And you've got the blending of the two of those within you. And it really creates a bottleneck.
it's a bottleneck, yes, for sure.
Yeah. And you're right about, this being an opportunity to do some ancestral lineage healing, because, I can remember my mother when I was a child would have to, get dressed to go to work, and I would always watch her. I always thought her clothes were beautiful, and her shoes, her high heel shoes, and she'd wear wigs and put on her makeup. I loved that whole ritual, watching her and thinking she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And I was aware that she had this practice whereby she'd buy herself a new outfit. She'd hide it in the back of her closet. And then whenever she thought it was safe enough to pull it out and put it on, if my dad said, "Oh, is that a new outfit?" she'd say, "Oh, no, I've had this for a while."
Yeah, yeah, because she might be challenged on spending money in that way. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. And that was a very strong message that I received as a child. And even with her mother, my grandmother, I can remember her telling me, in the 20s when she was a little girl, how their family had a boarding house and boarders that lived with them. And then 3 generations of the family, she and her siblings, her parents, and then her mother's parents. And there was a pecking order when it came to eating. First, all the boarders got fed. Then all the men in the family got fed. And if there was enough food, then she and her mother and grandmother could eat. And she remembers being told night after night, "You're not hungry," meaning there wasn't enough food for her to eat that night.
oh,
And in that way, they themselves were being silenced from expressing any desire or discontent or discomfort around that food, that nourishing aspect of being in the home that you're discussing.
yes, absolutely. It's much deeper than I thought. I mean, it's probably something that most women have felt at one time or another, and most men too. So Yeah, that's good.
So it is absolutely a wonderful opportunity for us to consciously engage with our family lineage healing around this particular gate as well.
Good.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, thank you.
So let's talk about the throat chakra. First of all, I love this painting
That's
by
beautiful.
Maria Forster representing the throat chakra. And I love that she even puts in here, speak your truth, which goes back to all of the, the instances that we've just described in all the ways that we ourselves and our mothers and our grandmothers were not given the opportunity to speak their truth. So the throat chakra is all about personal power. And I know that a lot of people associate the third chakra with personal power. And I think that there is a disconnect about the fact that the throat chakra is also a chakra that has to do with personal power, because it's a part of our power that we externalize. It's not the power that's internalized. And so anytime you try to externalize something and it's thwarted, it's very, very disempowering, and it makes you feel very, very vulnerable. So it's also the way that we express our life with the utmost authenticity, whether it's communicating our thoughts, our feelings, and our intentions, both clearly and accurately. And I can tell you that this is an aspect that I have been challenged on my entire life, in terms of having people lay upon me what they believe I'm thinking, feeling, and intending, that are so far gone from the truth, and nothing that I would ever say, think, feel, or intend. It's been a huge way in which this chakra has continued to be wounded for me. And it's the place where we work on expanding our voice and the power of our will. And so the main characteristics that this chakra holds is it's where we can heal and empower ourselves. It's where we can offer forgiveness, not on behalf of others, but because offering forgiveness heals ourselves and makes ourselves whole. And of course, our voice. And you can read more about that by going to this website here, and it'll flush this out in further detail. But is there anything that you'd like to share on the throat chakra?
No, nothing more.
Okay.
Oh, one thing. I think it's interesting to note that in my situation, that the throat is being affected physically as well as the history of the voice. I mean, there's smoke, and I think the idea of smoke and mirrors comes up so strongly right now, particularly concerning the situation the world is in, and the United States specifically, where the war is being fought. It looks like it's being fought in a lot of places, but this is truly ground zero for the war. And so the fact that everybody in my state and in Oregon and California is dealing with smoke is really very relevant, because it's that we are traditionally Democrat and very anti-Republican at this point. So it's interesting that we're all all of us up and down the coast are dealing with smoke.
Well, it's interesting, as I just shared with you before, about this concept of these lockdown measures where you're being forced to wear a mask and now you're being inundated with smoke. So in two ways, it's almost like a double whammy of having the voice silenced.
It is. It is a double whammy, and that's interesting that it would be at this gate to me, you know, and so.
Well, and when you use the phrase smoke and mirrors, well, mirrors skew your perception, don't they?
They
And smoke
absolutely,
can also skew your perception. It can hide. It can impede your ability to perceive.
absolutely.
So this is
Yeah,
something that I think you've been experiencing through the second gate as well as now in the third gate.
yes,
Is there
yes.
anything around that that's coming up that is requiring a voice right now, to be heard?
No, not anything other than what I've spoken already. Yeah, interesting.
And I can hear it. I can hear from the timbre of your voice
Mhm.
that it's physically being impacted uh, in a harmful way.
It is,
So, what
yeah.
is it that you're doing to help soothe that?
Um, Physically, I'm drinking more water, um, and spiritually, the constant search for truth, um, is always affected my ability to speak, um, because it's the path not taken, always has been. Um, so uh, the fact that my voice is affected is not unusual. I remember when I went to Egypt quite a while ago, when I was initiated on this path by Sekhmet. I spoke out at a meeting about what I was feeling about a previous life. I didn't actually see it. I felt it, that that the group that we were with were together in the past in Egypt, specifically two of them. And the next day, I had laryngitis. So I couldn't talk at all for 2 or 3 days. It was just weird.
Mm.
And so the fact that I didn't put it two and two together at that point, but I realize now that there was a reason that happened, because I had finally spoke out in my own uh, experience. I felt, uh-oh, now I'm in trouble. Now I'm going to really get challenged. And of course, I wasn't. There wasn't anybody there who would do that, um, at least not knowingly do that. But that's what happened there too. So once again, I'm experiencing that kind of physical reminder that there is an issue here.
Mm. So, if I may offer, tapping into the elements uh, to support you in that way. So, I know you said you've been drinking water, more water, um, drinking teas that are infused with herbs that come from the earth would incorporate that element. And I don't know if you have a dehumidifier But that would incorporate the air element as well as the fire element, because the water is being heated to diffuse it into the air for you to help. I'm not a dehumidifier, excuse me, a humidifier, putting
Yeah,
more humidity into your space to help the throat.
I do. I do have one, so that's a good idea. I'll get that out and use it. Be good. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for sharing all of that. So let's look at this third gate and what activations are going on. We know that this third gate is happening in the sign of Leo, a fire sign. And we know that it's conjunct Vesta, which is why we did the invocation to Vesta. So what we see here is that this gate activation is squaring this Uranus retrograde that started last month on the second gate activation. And it's also trining Chiron that's retrograde and Yeshua that's retrograde. And so here, because this gate is happening in Leo and it's trining Yeshua in Leo, we are really bringing in these archetype of the divine creation energies because of this Leo energy that's being shared harmoniously back and forth between Yeshua, Venus, Moon, and Vesta. And we'll talk more about that. We've got Mars going retrograde, Black Moon Lilith and Eris that's retrograde in Aries, being opposite to Juno in Libra. So we'll talk about that. And then Juno herself is trying the North Node in Gemini. And this is the second gate. I know the first gate, I'll have to look back at the second gate, and now the third gate. So 2 gates where the North Node has played an activating role at the gate activation point. So we know that the North Node is the cosmic evolutionary GPS showing us that this is where humanity is evolving towards. And of course, Gemini and Libra being air signs, which we've talked about at length before. So that's something to take a close look at. We also have the Magdalene, the Sun, and Sekhmet in Virgo, trine Pallas Athena, Jupiter, who is direct today, Pluto retrograde and Saturn retrograde in Capricorn. And so here is another kind of nod towards this divine creation because of the fact that we've got Magdalene, who is the beloved of Yeshua, the Christ consciousness and the Sophia consciousness, with the Sun and with Sekhmet here involved in these aspects. So this is very, very powerful. In the sign, of course, of the goddess, sacred service to the goddess. So this is a very powerful trine. And then Asmodeus, he continues to be our guide and our friend through this descent journey, pointing us to where our demons may be at this gate with Medusa in Cancer, trining Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So we'll look at these 4 aspects in a little bit more depth. So before we do, let's take a look here at this sacred masculine energy that we're consciously pulling in now. So as I've already mentioned, the first thing everybody needs to understand is that we have an inner sacred feminine and an inner sacred masculine. And in the ancient mystery schools, we talk about the as above and the so below. So in the sky, Venus represents the sacred feminine, Mars represents the sacred masculine. And within us, Venus represents in the below our inner sacred feminine, and in the below our inner sacred masculine. So here we do have the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. Now, under the Piscean archetype, which a lot of people are still very focused on, it was the archetype of Hieros Gamos, this archetype between the masculine and the feminine, this idea of sacred union between the masculine and the feminine. But we're moving now into the Aquarian archetype, and this archetype is the archetype of divine creation. And I have shared my blog post about that on the resource page. If you didn't get to see it while we were in the second gate, it's still there. I encourage you to go back and read it. The Mars synodic cycle is very different than the Venus synodic cycle. The Venus synodic cycle is approximately 19 months long, whereas the Mars cycle is approximately 26 months long. So it's a much longer cycle. And it's very different. While the Venus cycle is very much a pattern, the Mars cycle doesn't have the same kind of cosmic patterning to it, although it does have phases that you can look at and rely on. The patterning, like we have with the Venus cycle and the symbol of the pentagram and the rose that is created out of that, is not what's going on with the Mars cycle. Currently, we are still in the cosmic visionary cycle. That's the Aquarius archetype for the sacred masculine, the cosmic visionary. We're still in that cycle. And that will not change until Mars, that is now in retrograde, is in a direct opposition to the sun. Every time Mars is retrograde, it's always in opposition to the sun, always. And when that opposition between Mars and sun becomes direct, that marks the birth point of the new synodic cycle, the new masculine archetype that's coming onto the stage. So I thought it would be fun to share what the Mars overtones are for each of us, because we, of course, have our Venus overtones that I've shared that we're familiar with. So Maureen and I, just like we share the same Venus overtone in Scorpio, we share the same Mars overtone in Cancer. And that archetype is known as the good provider. And he is a safe space for the feminine and for others to be able to be vulnerable. So that's probably been a saving grace for us throughout our lives.
Yes.
Yeah. For Wanda, what's interesting, let me just point this out. So we have a Scorpio Venus overtone and a Cancer Venus overtone. So those are both in water.
Right.
For Wanda, I remember hers. Her Venus overtone is in Aquarius and her Mars overtone is in Libra. So both of them are in air. I think that's interesting. And I apologize to Leela because I don't right now remember. I know I've shared with you what your Venus overtone is. I just don't remember it right now. But Wanda's overtone as Libra is the archetype of the beloved. And so that very much even ties into this archetype of divine creation. And as the beloved, he is rewriting what it means to be in conscious equal partnership. And so for Leela, and if and when you get to meet her, which I hope is soon, you will see that this is very appropriate for her. Her Mars overtone is in Gemini, and that archetype is the eternal youth. And she very much has that energy of youthfulness about her. And he is the gypsy of the tribe. So that just kind of gives you some insight into our overtones with Mars. This retrograde period that we are in with Mars, which started September 10th. So just a few days ago, usually last about 3 months. We can see here that the Mars synodic cycle has actually 6 phases, and we call this phase 0 when the masculine energy moves into the sign that's going to be the archetype for the next cycle. So during this phase 0, we've got a blending of still being in the Aquarian archetype, but now because of the fact that once he enters that sign of Aries, then very soon he starts to go into retrograde. We're already beginning to have these opportunities of foresight, of being able to vision what this Mars and Aries archetype is going to look like. And then it actually takes off in this phase 1, as I said, when that opposition to the sun is direct. That will happen October 14th. And as it happens, that aligns with when our Gemini goddess 4th gate activation is happening here at the heart center. And so I think that it's really significant, really significant that we'll be starting, I'll be offering, and if you'd like to join us, starting this sacred masculine journey here when Venus is activating the 4th gate, particularly because if you read my blog post about the archetype of divine creation, I talk about how the masculine and the feminine energies, the Christ consciousness, the Sophia consciousness here is here. It's implanted here in the heart center. So I do not believe that there are any mistakes that as we are beginning to offer that journey, that this is happening at that particular gate. And I don't know, Maureen, if you'd like to share something about that particular piece, what you're feeling about that.
Yeah, well, I felt like, can't remember what I was thinking the other day. The thought just went out of my mind, but that all the Venus cycles that we've gone through, and I've been consciously engaging the Venus cycle since 2012, when she actually transited the sun. I went to Hawaii where I could see that. And it was truly an amazing, spectacular thing to see. And she did not cross the sun in the way that people thought she would. She took a different path, which also was interesting. But from that point on, I engaged the cycle consciously, and it's made a big difference. And in each cycle, obviously, there's a different overtone. And what I've really noticed about that is that she has been building up to the balance and union of the masculine and the feminine. She has absolutely been encouraging us to look at that. And so finally, at this point in Gemini, it is a conscious thing. The joining of the masculine and the feminine in this cycle is coming from months, years of work with the cycle. So the fact that we now have an opportunity to study them together is just amazing to me. It's an incredible opportunity, and I've never studied Mars before, never particularly cared, which shows you where my internal masculine was. I was not acknowledging him at all. And now I have this chance to study them together. This is such a new ground and so fertile and so very important right now. that when Sophia Mona Lisa began to see that as also a very relevant thing to do at this point, and beginning bringing that into our work, I'm just jumping at the chance to do that. I hope everybody sees that as a really relevant piece to what's going on the earth right now. It's going to make a big difference. It's huge.
Yes, yes. And to just give a little bit more background in terms of how we've been led to this, because I understand that not everybody's at the same place that we are. And that's okay, allowing space for that, because engaging with the sacred feminine for the first time might be as much as somebody can handle at one time, and then grow into being able to handle both. That's okay. But, you know, the last archetype when Venus was the Libran archetype, the relational goddess archetype. So you see, she was already, as Maureen was saying, preparing us because we were actively engaged with her as the relational goddess for this. I didn't see it at that point. We were in the thick of it, and you know, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, and so I didn't recognize it then. When Maureen and I went to France last year, it was during the Inanna underworld phase of the Libran cycle. But what I didn't realize then was not only was Venus in the underworld, also Mars was in the underworld with her. And that only happens when Venus and Mars are in the underworld together every 32 years. And so I knew that the timing was perfect timing. And the fact that that trip even took place was miraculous, because the facilitator had decided not to do those trips anymore and decided at the last minute to offer one more trip. And so because of our Scorpio Venus overtone, the underworld goddess, and of course our Cancer overtone also being water, being in the underworld together, that was very much an initiatory time for us that prepared us for this unveiling and this coming together of this work that is now, you know, showing up and to be ready to shared. So I just wanted to kind of give a little background to Wanda and Leela, that while we're ready, and this is why we're ready, this is something that's been working with us for a year. It was a year ago that we were in France. That if they're not ready, I understand that and I honor that.
Yeah, I do too. I was not ready either. I did not acknowledge Mars or even investigate the overtone for years. Like I said, starting in 2012, I was only interested in Venus. And my own internal marriage was a very hard fought thing because I didn't want it. And I remember in my priestess class where, remember the high priestess level, Sophia Mona Lisa, we had to have the intermarriage. That was very much a part of that. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the only one in the class who doesn't get married, you know. And I was sure it wasn't going to happen for me, but it did. And I began to acknowledge my inner masculine, my Mars, and try to understand how he was engaging my inner feminine, and it worked out to be quite a nice time. You know, I really appreciated that was a part of my experience in my high priestess training. So from then on, I've been more likely to acknowledge what that part of me is is informing me, and they inform each other. So
They do.
you know,
They do. And we are taught in the priestess lineage and through shamanic astrology that the masculine energy is here to serve and support the feminine energy. And that is a complete shift for the
it is.
masculine the masculine energy on this planet, as we know that through patriarchy, which is the profane expression of the sacred masculine, it has dominated the feminine energy on the planet. It has not served and supported it.
No, that's true. It's interesting that shift. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I felt like when Yeshua was on the earth, that was the role for both Mary and Magdalene, is that they supported his mission. And then when he was no longer walking the planet, they continued it and were silenced over and over again, except for in the church, Mary remained. And I've always been very grateful that she was the energy, the only energy women could interact with for centuries. And she was there for them all along. And she had to take a lesser role, but she did have the role of Divine Mother. And I feel that it was comforting for women all along that she was there in that role. And kind of unusual.
I think I've told you this story before, but I'll share it in case the others haven't heard it. When I was a little girl, I was traveling from South Florida back up here to Central Florida with my grandmother. She had this beat up VW bug, and we ended up on the side of the road. I don't know if it was a flat tire or something. Something went wrong. We're on the side of the interstate highway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the moment feeling very abandoned and vulnerable because I'm thinking, who's going to come and save us? And it was the first time ever that my grandmother had said something like this to me. But she looked at me and she said, let's pray to the Virgin. She'll help us. And sure enough, a trucker stopped to help us. But I was probably, 9, 10 years old. And up to that moment in my life, nobody had spoken about her.
Yeah.
In our home, in our family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's and yet she was always there for women, particularly for women. I think I'm not sure that maybe men. I know they respected her, of course, in the church, but it was the only energy, like I said, for women to. And I know that when they do their Hail Marys, or how they do with their beads or rosaries, she's that's who they're talking about.
And isn't it interesting that it's called a rosary?
Yes,
the
it
rose
is.
representing the sacred feminine.
Feminine, absolutely. there's signs all over, just like that in what was the book, Da Vinci Code, where they said, which he based on studies, Dan Brown based on studies about the Magdalene, and that the rose was so significant in that, and that they had left signs all over for people to see, but they didn't see it, but there are in fact signs that she was present but not acknowledged.
Right.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
And it was also interesting that book set off a whole new mainstream thinking, idea. It just took off.
Mm-hmm.
Its time was ready. It was time for that to happen.
Right. The possibility of them having been equal partners,
Mhm.
had been seeded for centuries, but was now starting to break the surface and
Yes,
come up above
yes.
the ground. Yeah, yeah. So, I'm discussing the sacred masculine and the Mars synodic cycle here because it is relevant in this gate and, of course, the next gate as well with the Mars synodic cycle uh, starting over, birthing the new sacred masculine archetype in Aries, and that archetype is the fierce protector. So we're very much connected to that, which is why I wanted to take the time to share that right now. So here's the astrology chart for the third gate. You will notice, and I figured this out eventually, I think finally for Leela's personal session, you will notice that up here where it's in purple, you can match it down here in purple. And where it's up here in green, you can match it down here in green. And the same for the yellow, and that's supposed to be like a rust color. So tried to color code it to make it easier because I know everyone's still learning how to look at and recognize the symbols on this chart. So hopefully that'll make it a little simpler. But we see here, I have to take some water here. We see here where the moon and the Venus are conjunct in Leo. Now, let me explain this in case you're confused, because on the first slide it says, or the second slide up where I talk about it, says 9 Leo. So I think I've discussed this before, but let me just put it in as an aside here. We know that there's 360 degrees in the wheel, in the astrological wheel. We know that that's divided into 12 houses of 30 degrees each, right? 12 times 30 is the 360 degrees. And they're numbered from 0 to 29. That's how the 30 degrees go. Just like a clock where you have an hour, 60 minutes in an hour, and 60 seconds in a minute, the same type of thing happens with the degrees. So each degree has 60 minutes, and each minute has 60 seconds. And while we very rarely see the seconds notated because that degree of separation, for lack of a better word, is probably no more than like the width of a hair, we do see the notation for the minutes, and that's what these little numbers are. So when you're seeing 8:47, that's 8 degrees, 47 minutes, and it might be like 3 seconds, but they're not including that, okay? So because we know that each degree has 60 minutes, when the minute position is over 30 degrees, right, the halfway point, then it gets rounded up. This is, remember, basic math in like third grade when you learn about rounding. Same kind of thing here. If it's over 30 minutes, then it'll get rounded up to 9 degrees. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
If it's under, like here, if it's under 30 minutes, then it gets rounded down to 14 degrees. And that's just for ease of discussion, because to always have to say, well, the moon and Venus are at 8 degrees, 47 minutes, Leo, it's a mouthful. So it's easier to say, oh, the moon and Venus are at 9 degrees, Leo. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we can see how very closely they are conjunct to Vesta here. So 9 or they're 8 to 14, 9 to almost 15. We're talking about 6 degrees. And a conjunction window is anywhere up to 10 degrees. When you're getting with the the slower moving planets like Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, then that what they call an orb, a window is called an orb. The window of separation, the orb, comes down to about 3 degrees. Okay, so that's why I've included all of that there. And then we can see the trine over here to Chiron, which is retrograde, and Yeshua, which are retrograde in Aries. Now, remember what I said about the full moon that takes place, what was it, October 1st in Aries? It's happening at 9 degrees Aries, or 8 degrees something Aries. So it's triggering, that full moon is going to trigger this point in our gate activation. And remember, like a pinball machine, bing, 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 once the full moon triggers this point, then this point gets triggered, and then that point gets triggered, because they're all connected. Does that make sense to you, Maureen?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I made a point to draw your attention to that in that slide where I was talking about what's going on in the heavens. And because it's a full moon, it's illuminating this gate activation. And what illumines the moon? The light of the sun. Who is the light of, and the sun? Yeshua, right?
Yes.
What does the sun rule? Leo. So this is a very, very significant full moon for us to choose to consciously engage with through ceremony, or however you desire to do that, or inspired to do that when that happens. It's a very significant time. And then we see here that this gate activation is squaring Uranus retrograde up here in Taurus. So that's that first aspect that I talk about. The second aspect that I talk about has to do here with the Mars retrograde. Remember that I told you up here, Mars stationed retrograde on September 10th. That's just 3 days ago. And we're getting the benefit of that now at our gate. So Mars is retrograde at 28 degrees. I'd like to point out 29 degrees of every sign is a mastery degree. So I find it very significant that this retrograde is happening at 28 degrees, right before that mastery sign. So you can see that he is conjunct Black Moon Lilith and Eris, who's retrograde in Aries. And then across the sky down here in Libra, this opposition to Juno, the goddess of sacred partnership, at 28 degrees. And, you know, I think this is the third gate that Juno has played a significant role in at each of these gate activations. And so this is also an underlying energy, an underlying theme that is showing that working with the Venus energy and the Mars energy is something that we're being guided and inspired to do, as Juno represents the goddess of sacred partnership. And then Juno herself is trine to this North Node in Gemini. And remember when we started with the first gate, I think the North Node was at 28 or 29 degrees Gemini. I don't remember the exact point. So again, the North Node has been playing a huge role in our gate activations, showing us that this is exactly everything that's happening here is on track for the expansion, the evolutionary expansion of the collective consciousness of humanity at this time, which just gives these gate activations an even more significant meaning in terms of the role that they're playing.
For sure.
Yeah. So the third aspect that we talked about here is the Magdalene sun and the goddess Sekhmet being conjunct here in Virgo, the sign of sacred service. This is the sign of the high priestess in service to the goddess. And they are trying. Pallas Athena falls in here because she's so close to Jupiter. So remember that analogy I gave you of the little balls on the string when you hit one and it hits the other and it goes back. So that's how she's pulled into this.
Okay.
I mean, you look 12 to 25 degrees, you know, that's a 13-degree orb, which is a little outside of that window of 10 degrees. But because she's within 5 degrees of Jupiter, she gets that energetic effect of the balls bouncing back and forth and hitting each other. But most significantly, we've got this Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn conjunction going on. And we've talked about the Pluto Saturn conjunction that happened in January 12th. We've talked about the 3, which is very rare, Jupiter, Pluto conjunctions that are happening this year, and how both of those conjunctions are an overarching theme for this journey. And now here they are showing up as a significant part of this gate activation. So that's why I'm taking this particular opportunity to look a little bit more closely at what their conjunctions as an overarching theme could be about. Not only for each of us individually when you do your sessions in terms of your solar return chart and how that's impacting your evolutionary path through this solar return chart, but then also with this gate. And then the final aspect here is this Medusa Asmodeus conjunction in Cancer, trine Neptune retrograde in Cancer. This Neptune retrograde has also been a big player. I remember in the second gate, I don't remember about the first gate, but I think it was. I'd have to go back and look. So that's interesting that Neptune, which is such a slow moving planet, has been playing such a significant role through these gate activations. So does this make sense to you in terms of being able to tie it back to the previous slide that has all that written out?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Any questions about it?
No.
Okay. So let's look at the themes. So you'll see I've once again incorporated the colors here. A purple, green, yellow, and maroon, I guess is the color, right? Maroon. I don't know why I was saying like a rust color, a brick color. But anyhow, so let's look at what some of the themes are. And when I'm looking at these themes, I'm incorporating what I have been practicing with you from the very beginning in terms of looking at keywords for the luminary bodies, keywords for the signs that they're in. So I'm just laying these out for you, as I've done in the past, so that you can play with this. You know, do your own little vision quest with your own solar return chart and see which of these words or which other words using the thesaurus resonate with you in terms of what's happening for you personally during these activations. So when we talk about the Venus moon conjunct Vesta in Leo, we see here that Leo is all about the creative force. It's about the principle of self-love. It's about radiant confidence, radiant power, and it's an energy that is heart-led for the highest good of all, which I know on the shadow side is hard to believe because Leos on the shadow side can be so narcissistic. But on the light side, they are heart-led for the highest good of everyone. And so we know about the Venus and moon being the sacred feminine and the divine mother. Vesta represents the goddess of sacred passion or holy desire. And this is not a sexual passion. It is a passion that burns within you. It is your reason for getting up every day, because this is the work that you must do, that you're driven to do. And then we see that is square Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So when we look at Taurus, we know that that energy is all about embodiment, grounding energies on the earth. It's about enjoying the pleasures of the senses. It's about beauty and intimacy. It also has high standards, and it's about physically expressing ourselves, which is a different kind of expression than the emotional expression that we were talking about earlier. And we know that Uranus is the cosmic liberator and the vision quester. And of course, the many other words related to Uranus, you know, the radical inventions, humanity, collective consciousness of humanity. So a lot of words related to that, which is why I encourage you to go back and look for, you know, astrological keywords for each of these that may be resonating with you at this time. And then that gate is trining the Chiron retrograde, Yeshua retrograde in Aries. So we know that Aries is the fierce protector, the defender of the innocent, the warrior of the exploited, and is all about righteousness. And so again, it's no mistake that this is the archetype that is coming onto the world stage at our next gate, Venus gate activation. And it's beautiful that this gate activation is trining those energies. Remember, with the trine, it's a harmonious flow. It's like getting on a raft and letting the river just carry you down the stream or the river. Very harmonious flow. Remember with squares, that squares are opportunities for breakthroughs in consciousness. And I call it an opportunity because you can choose, if you think about a portal, a door, which has, right, 490-degree angles on it, which is what a astrological square is. It's 90 degrees. You can choose to cross over the threshold or not. If you cross over the threshold, then you are grabbing that opportunity for that breakthrough in consciousness. If you choose not to, then you've missed the opportunity for that breakthrough. Chiron being the cosmic shaman, offering you his shamanic medicine, and Yeshua being the Christ consciousness, above and below, right? As above, so below. So below, he walks as the high priest. So that's that first aspect and some of the themes that you can encounter with that aspect. With this second one, the Mars retrograde, Black Moon Lilith, Eris retrograde, opposite Juno. Let's look at that. So we've got Mars, Black Moon Lilith, and Eris and Aries. Well, we've already touched on that Aries energy. And we know that Mars is the sacred masculine, that Black Moon Lilith is the goddess of sacred honor. And I call her this because in the myth of Black Moon Lilith, she's the one that chooses to leave Adam, the first wife of Adam. She chooses to leave him in order to claim her sovereignty. And he's so distressed at her leaving that he asks God to send angels to bring her back. And God sends 3 separate sets of angels to bring her back, and she refuses. She's, you know, she is not going to allow herself to be subjugated to her partner. That is not conscious equal partnership. And as a result, she is demonized. She is villainized as a result of it. And so this is why I'm calling her the goddess of sacred honor. We've done a lot of work with Eris, and here she is again. She's been such a present part of these gate activations as the goddess of radical truth. And then Juno over here in Libra, we've worked a lot with her too. We know that Libra is the dedicated partner, the peacemaker, the fair negotiator, all about cooperation and collaboration. And we know that Juno is the goddess of sacred partnership. She will uphold partnership no matter what. Even when her husband is blatantly having affairs with all these other women, she will deny that it's happening so that she can uphold the sacredness of that partnership. And then she's trying the North Node in Gemini. Gemini energy is the free thinker. It's playful. It's the creative muse. It's the shapeshifter, and it has a very sharp mind. And we know that the North Node is the cosmic evolutionary GPS, showing us exactly where humanity's consciousness is evolving towards. So, isn't it interesting with all of the things that are happening in terms of silencing our voice on the world stage, that we as a humanity are evolving to where we will be free thinkers. And what is the outcome of being a free thinker? Communicating those thoughts, isn't it?
Mm.
So I just find that as an interesting dichotomy.
Yes, it is.
Times that we're in, but we're going somewhere, and that's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So the Magdalene, Sun and Sekhmet in Virgo, trine Pallas, Athena, Jupiter, Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, and this ties back into slide 13, which we will look at. Virgus is the priestess of sacred work. She uses ceremony, ritual, medicine tools to realign and balance spirit and matter. And she is aligned with the goddess Vesta. And the priestesses and the high priestesses act as a conduit for Vesta, as a conduit of the goddess, representative of her, the goddess on earth. So the fact that Vesta is in that gate activation with Venus and Moon, and that these Virgo energies that that Virgo is aligned with as a goddess, is again a very synchronistic expression of the energies that are going on right now. We know that Magdalene is the Sophia consciousness in the above, the high priestess below. We know that the sun is the source of fuel. It fuels whatever is going on in life. It fuels whatever is being created. And Sekhmet. Sekhmet is, I call her the goddess of equity and atonement, because she has for so long been identified as the goddess of vengeance. And that is a patriarchal word. And, you know, yes, she may quote unquote seek vengeance in terms of the way that the patriarchy identifies that energy, but she's doing it because she is upholding equity, and she's doing it because she demands atonement. And so that's why I've given her this name.
It's a great change. That's a great way to look at it. I like that because, you know, in the myth of Sekhmet, she is stopped from her mission by getting her drunk.
Right. They have to rein her in, and so they get her drunk.
And I just always was amazed by that, you know, just get her drunk and she'll pass out and you don't have to pay any more attention to her, you know.
Right. Another way to silence the sacred feminine, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
And so this truth, remember Eris, the goddess of radical truth, is a part of this activation. Excuse me. This truth that the sacred feminine can demand an equitable position, can demand atonement for the way that she has been aggrieved, is a whole new radical truth whose consciousness is now coming onto the earth. Because look at Lady Liberty, the symbol of justice. What have they done? They've blindfolded her, right? They've shut down her gate of perception. And so Sekhmet is saying, no more. Take off the shackle, take off the fucking masks, pardon my French, take off the blindfolds. We are here and we are going to be treated equitably and equally, and you will atone for how you have mistreated us.
Yes.
Sorry, I got on my soapbox there.
Oh, it's a good one.
That's my sacred feminine and my inner sacred feminine and my inner sacred masculine, both in the fire signs of Leo and Sagittarius.
Well, that's where my moon is, Leo.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel that one.
Yeah. So Pallas Athena, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and Capricorn. We know Capricorn energy, which by the way will be the next Venus archetype on the world stage. Capricorn is the manifester, it's resourceful, it's represented by the ancient elders, the wisdom keepers, the way showers. Pallas Athena is the goddess of sacred order. What she does is she looks at everything that's in front of her, and she is able to determine what is the most effective and efficient way to use those resources to move us forward. And so I call her the goddess of sacred order. Jupiter is the cosmic guru, Pluto the cosmic transformer, and Saturn is the goddess of sovereignty, ruler of Capricorn, goddess of Capricorn. Her true name is Saturnia. Saturn is the name that the patriarchy gave Saturnia when they usurped her from the goddess. Asmodeus Medusa in Cancer, trine Neptune in Pisces. Cancer energy being the nurturer, nourisher, emotional supporter, creator of safe space, and Gaia. Gaia is our mother. Cancers are the mothers in the world. Gaia is a huge mother energy for us. Asmodeus is our guide to our inner demons at the throat chakra. And Medusa is, I've changed her name to the goddess of valor. Remember, she shows us where we have those patriarchal fears that paralyze us. And so what's the opposite of paralyzing fears? Valor, courage. And that's who Medusa is. Pisces energy is about unconditional love, compassion, unity consciousness, merging with the divine. And we know that Neptune, as the god of Pisces, is our cosmic channel to that source, to that quantum field, that unified field from which all things are made manifest. So you can play with these keywords and other keywords that you may find that are more resonant for you to discover what some of the themes about these aspects are for you relative to your own solar return chart. And if you're able to do that before your personal session, that'd be great because we can play with those together. Is there anything you'd like to share about this piece of it? Are the wheels turning?
Yeah, I worked with some of it last night a little bit. Got a start on it.
So why don't you say that for me when we get to that next slide?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, let's talk about the shamanic medicine available to us, because we know here that Chiron, the cosmic shaman, is engaged with us through Leo and Aries. So let's see what that shamanic medicine looks like. So the shamanic medicine of Aries, and this is the second time now that that we are getting this medicine from Chiron, the medicine of self-love and who we are. What is our personal identity? And the questions that we can ask are, do I have the right to exist? And how do I exert that right? And our medicine enables us to know that, yes, we do have the right to exist, and just exactly how we can best exert that right. Leo's medicine is all about, isn't this interesting, happening at this gate, speaking truth, honoring creativity, and inspiring others' expression. This is a huge medicine that we are receiving at this gate of communication at the throat chakra. And so the question that you may contemplate for yourself, which then also happens to be a throat demon, or could be a throat demon for you, is how can I express myself spontaneously and creatively without feeling wounded or crushed? And I know for me that this is a huge demon, as I've described in the previous slides. This specifically has to do with this shamanic medicine. And believe me, it's no mistake that it has to do as well with these throat demons. Other demons that you may come across, and there may be other questions that you come up with. And so please, during the group support session, you come up with other demon questions to contemplate about the throat demons, please write them down and please share them in the group session. So we have here, in what ways do I feel vulnerable speaking my truth? How am I blocking my authenticity? How am I using my voice to harm myself? I guess I was going to put and or others, but we know that when we're harming others, we are also harming ourselves. So how am I using my voice to harm myself and others? Which wounds prevent me from communicating clearly? And where have I given away my power of will? So these might be some demons that you carry. You may carry others. And please feel free to share with us so that we can benefit from them as well. Is there anything you'd like to bring our attention to regarding the shamanic medicine and these throat demons?
No.
A lot of work happening at this gate, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
And so much opportunity and support.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for some breakthroughs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and remember, even if you're not aware of them at this gate, you will become aware of them.
Yeah.
Because just by setting the conscious intention that you are ready for breakthroughs in consciousness, then that will happen for you, even if it's imperceptible at this time. Okay, so here we get into this cosmic dance related to the opportunity for vision question, right? We're changing our language here.
Okay.
So this was the Saturn conjunct Pluto and Capricorn energy that happened on January 12th. Just for Wanda and Leela's sake, this conjunction is encoded in my solar return chart and Maureen's solar return chart, because my birthday is January 8th, hers is January 9th. And of course, these are slow moving planets. And so my birthday was 4 days ahead of this. Maureen was 3 days ahead of it. So this conjunction, while not exact, but very, very close, within a degree or two, is encoded in our solar return chart. So we are especially being impacted by the themes of this particular cosmic dance. And And then the triple Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions in Capricorn, which again is extremely rare to have 3 conjunctions in a year. When this happens, it's normally 2 conjunctions, but to have 3 is rare. So we had one in April and in June, and we've got one coming up in November. So that one will be happening during the window of, let's see, we're September, October. That one will be happening during the solar plexus gate. So this is the slide that I created for you guys to play with. And it's similar to the work that we did in our personal sessions for the second gate. And so I put some keywords here for Capricorn, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter for you to kind of play and put together, to find out, to ask yourself some questions, to find out what these 2 key conjunctions could mean for you. You could also pull in keywords for where those happened in your chart regarding the houses, right? The house that happened in your solar return chart. Remember that. So what I did is, these are by no means all of the keywords. And you can also, while I did not include any of the shadow keywords, you can include shadow keywords, because this can show you where you're being expanded as well when you're looking at the shadow aspects. So I used, how is my inner wisdom keeper being which is the Capricorn word, being transformed, is the Pluto word, so that I can manifest Saturn, new foundations, Saturn, for sharing empowerment, that's Pluto, and mastery. And so while this is really a good way to kind of blend all of these energies together, this question may not resonate with you. It's a question that resonates with me, but you may find a different way to combine these words for Capricorn, Saturn, and Pluto, or other keywords that you found to ask a different question. There are all kinds, there's an infinite number of questions that can be asked. And so this is about tapping in and receiving that guidance from your higher self about what it is that you're ready to know in terms of your expansion. And then for the Jupiter conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, selecting from the Pluto and Jupiter columns, which of my inner resources, which is Pluto, are being amplified, which is Jupiter, so that I can contribute, that's Capricorn, my knowledge, which is Jupiter, of alchemy, which is Pluto, to others. So again, very pertinent to me personally, but you may have a completely different question that comes out of those words that is very resonant for you. So this is a good opportunity for you to share, Maureen, because I know you said that you had played with this a little bit.
I did last night. I got some, drafts. I haven't worked with these stores yet, so
what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is I'd like to make this screen smaller so that I can actually type on here for the benefit of everybody. Hold on. Is that okay with you to put your questions in here?
Sure.
Right. Let me make some space here. Okay, where are you going to start?
with the Saturn conjunct Pluto and Capricorn.
Okay.
The word that I, let's see, I worked with. I chose a way shower. How does the way shower
Okay, hold on a second.
within? Master the alchemy of my inner resources. I think what I said was for being transformed, for transformation. That's just a draft.
So we've got way shower here. We know that's a Capricorn word.
Mm-hmm.
We've got master.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Saturn word.
Mm-hmm.
Alchemy, the Pluto word. Inner resources is a Pluto word. And transformation is a Pluto word. So, oops, what happened there? Hold on a second. Okay, so how does the way shower within, or you could say, how does my inner way shower, either way is fine, master the alchemy of my inner resources for transformation? So if we wanted to make this really clear, we could say, master the transformation of my inner resources through alchemy. Does that resonate with you?
Okay, say that again now.
Master the
Master.
transformation of my inner resources through alchemy. Or is that not your intent? Because I'm trying to discern your
Yeah.
intent. Or is the intent, how do I transform my inner way shower through alchemizing my inner resources? See how that shows you two different intentions?
Yeah.
So what is your intent here?
My intent is to bring my inner resources together through alchemy, in order to show the way to transformation, to
Aha.
clear the road, to plow the road for transformation. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a perfect question. How does my inner way shower plow the road for transformation through the alchemy of my inner resources, or by alchemizing my inner resources?
Yes. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. So how does my inner way shower plow the road for transformation by alchemizing my inner resources? Now, I want to make sure that that's the intent that you have this question, because I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah. I probably would change, maybe plow the road, because that's a term that, I mean, that is what I'm doing effectively, but I'll probably change that for something else. But that's basically the idea of what I want to do. I want to clear that path. I want to see it clearly.
So how does my inner way shower clear the path
There. For
to allow for, how about that? To allow for transformation by
That's good.
alchemizing my inner resources.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
That speaks to your intent?
Yes, it does.
I
Clear.
love it.
Oh, good.
I love it. What a great question.
Yeah.
So when you say the path, is it more personal? Is it my path?
Yes. It's very personal. Yeah.
Beautiful, Maureen. That is powerful. So,
Thank you. That's good. That's really good. Yeah, I like that.
wow. And you know, even this term, my path, it could be considered a Saturn energy word, because when we're talking about Saturn energy, we are building structures, and a structure that we use to get from one place to another is a pathway, a road.
It is. Yes.
Anything else?
That would be sad.
Did you have anything else you wanted to contribute? Anything on Jupiter and Pluto, or is that as far as you got? And if that's,
No, I started. Go ahead.
I said, and if that's as far as you got, that's huge. So don't feel pressured.
No, I'm that is a really good question for me to work with. Thank you. Okay, the Jupiter conjunct Pluto and Capricorn, I began working with, and because I'm working so closely with alchemy, I'm choosing that word again.
Okay.
How can my knowledge of alchemy contribute to the collective wisdom for the highest good? That's it. Yeah.
Okay, now you tell me this time which words are which energies.
Okay, knowledge is Capricorn. Alchemy is Pluto. And wisdom is again Capricorn. And for the highest good, that's Jupiter. Yeah, now see, you have knowledge under Jupiter, and I think of knowledge under Capricorn. I don't know, that's just the way I think.
Right. And so, you know, think about the frequencies, because Sagittarian, which Jupiter is the god of, is all about higher truths and knowledge.
Okay.
Capricorns are all about wisdom, right? The wisdom of the ancient elders.
Yes.
You feel the difference in those frequencies between the words knowledge and wisdom?
Yeah.
And so when you say, how can my knowledge, you are invoking the Jupiterian energies of alchemy, Pluto, contribute to the collective wisdom, Capricorn, for the highest good. And I love how you use this highest good as an expansive energy of Jupiter.
Yes.
That's fabulous. I'm so,
You.
pardon me, I don't mean to sound condescending, but I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. This is this system that you taught really helps me to put those questions together and work with them. It's not something I've found to be very easy in the past. So yeah, that works miracles. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's go back now to this previous slide where, and I'll copy this and bring it down, because we know that those Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, Capricorn energies are being activated. So let's bring it down here. And so the next thing I'm inviting you to do is, you already know how to work with the keywords of these because you've been working with them, right? That's Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and Capricorn. So now for our group session, what I'm inviting you to do is to go back up here and look at some of the themes that I've shared here and incorporate it with, you know, these other keywords and see what you come up with.
Okay.
So what are we doing? We're taking our work with engaging this cosmic dance and we're expanding it.
Yeah.
Very Jupiterian, very Venus and Sagittarius, as both you and I have, right?
Oh yeah. Yes. Thankfully, she's been fairly free to express most of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I can make this just a little bit bigger because that yellow
Okay.
is kind of hard to read when it's so small. There. How's that?
Good. Yeah. Good. That's good. Thank you.
All right. How you
Yeah.
feeling about that?
Oh, really good. I'm feeling really good. Like,
I mean, this is just the third class. Look at how far you've come. This is fabulous.
thank you.
Well done, you.
Yeah. Well, you know, I told you should teach. Told you a long time ago you should teach.
Well, just for Wanda and Leela's sake, it's because of Maureen that I started doing these sacred feminine classes because I was reluctant to do it. And she knows that in large part I was reluctant to do it because I didn't want to step on Kaylin and Tammy's toes. But she assured me I had something different to offer. So I thought, okay, I'll be brave enough and step out there. So
And
thanks
I'm
to you
proud
for
of you.
your support and encouragement.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see where we are. Okay, so our next support group is in 2 weeks. That's a Sunday, 2 p.m. I appreciate everybody being flexible to change the time so that I can leave on Sunday afternoons to head out of town. And any final questions and answers?
Oh. I'll have to be real strong about listening to this later because I do not like listening to myself talk at all.
We don't sound the way we think we sound, do we?
No.
Whenever I hear recordings of myself, I'm like, who is that?
We don't sound like it at all. And it's just real hard for me to listen to myself on recordings. Always has been. So sometimes I skip that part.
Mm. Well, please don't, because you've got some fabulous wisdom coming through. The two of us also have our sun in Capricorn, and she has her Mercury conjunct the sun in Capricorn. So it's time to start communicating that wisdom.
Oh yeah, it is. That's just one of my demons.
Well, that would be a perfect demon for you to form a question around that you could share in the group session.
Listening to my own voice, yes, absolutely.
And communicating your own wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm writing that down, so I won't.
You can thank Asmodeus for bringing that into your awareness.
Yes. Yes, he is. He's right here. He's with me all the time. And I have him in my diary. You know, I copied out a picture of him from our experience in the church, and I just think he's an amazing demon. Just
He is.
so powerful. Yes.
He is. So listen, whenever you formulate the question and you start contemplating it, go back and look at that aspect of Asmodeus and Medusa in Cancer, trine Neptune in Pisces, because first clue, it's in Cancer. It's an emotional demon. Second clue, he's conjunct Medusa. It's an emotionally paralyzing fear. Okay. So you see how you can tap into that to get the answer.
I do see that. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. My it's not my personal Venus return, but it does seem to be continuing on, doesn't it?
I know.
What happened to us during our return is definitely manifesting.
So let me ask you this from the priestess perspective, this whole thing about the year and the day. Do you think the year and the day started at September 8th, or do you think it starts, when did we leave, the 15th?
Yeah, 15th or 16th. Yeah. So I think we came home on the 16th.
So September 17th is the year and the day.
I think so. Yeah, September, and it's clearly absolute. I think that is what happened. The year and the day to integrate, and you know what's interesting about that is that you don't have to consciously be thinking about that integration. It just goes on because we allowed it to shape our experience. We went with it, so to speak.
Yes, we did. So that's happening 3 days after the gate activation. Oh, and I promised you, hold on a second, that I would, let me share my screen again. I promised you that I would show you on the chart. Let me minimize this and bring up the chart, what time that gate activation is so that you will know whether it's happening today or tomorrow for you. Taking a while for this to load. I don't know why it does, but it does. Here it comes. All right, so you can see here, next here, that my time, it's happened at 2:53 a.m. tomorrow, but you're 3 hours behind me. So it's going to be happening at 11:53 p.m. tonight for you. So you see how it's crossing days because of the time difference?
Yes, yes. So this is in fact my gate day today.
Yes, your gate day is tonight at 11:53 p.m. Mine's 3 hours later, which is technically tomorrow.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same time.
Yes,
Isn't that crazy?
it is crazy.
But
Yeah.
but
But
for
it's
me, it'll happen tomorrow morning. So that
Yep.
doesn't often happen where the gate activation straddles days because of the time zones, but I know it does for this one, and I wanted to show that to you so that you could be aware.
Yeah. I'll have to watch it on my little app, because I won't see it. She
Yeah.
will still be below the horizon, and so I watch it happen. That's
Okay.
cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a fabulous class, and I thank you as always for showing up. Are there any final words or thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, but that little what do you call those little emotional icons? What are those? Emoticon?
Emojis?
Emoji. The one that we use with the little brain blowing up. Yeah. That's what I feel like.
That's a great emoji.
Yes.
Listen, I do too, just from this interaction. That's what happens because you get such a paradigm shift through each piece that's, being given to you.
Mm, it is. It's huge. Everything feels huge now. And I think it is. It just
Yeah.
doesn't feel, but it really is.
Yeah.
On so many different subjects, on so many levels that going on right now. You have to really, really stay grounded. Very important. I'm working with stones more than anything on my altar this time, and I think actually that there's always a lot of grounding stones on there to help me with that, and I always have my little. Did I ever show you that this I bought?
Yeah.
Okay, this is my skull that I was attracted to at a show I went to. The woman was selling stones, and I always go in and look at them. And I thought, oh, I want that. I want that a lot. And she just picked it up and said, yeah, this one is for healing wounds to the head. She just looked at it and said, that's what this is. She pointed out several things on the skull that would indicate it was cut, in that was the energy of this piece was to, and of course I fell and got a huge concussion, and so I told her, I said, I'm healing from a concussion, and she just went, stones just speak to us. They just come and tell us that they're here for us, so
That's fabulous.
yeah, so he always sits on my altar too.
Good. Well, remember, we've got energies in Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn at this gate activation. So it should be really easy to ground these energies
Yes.
because we've got all of the earth energies involved.
Right. Okay, got it.
All right, my dear. Thanks a million.
Absolutely, thank you.
I will talk to you soon, sweetie.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.